The MLB trade deadline is fast approaching, and with that in mind, we're going to get into the buyers and sellers in the MLB market. We'll get into some trade talk as well, and get into some of the posts that you guys have posted to us and other sites, and kind of judge where these trades are at. Are these good ideas, bad ideas? And as we get closer to the trade deadline over the next month and a half, we'll come up with our own, build our own trades, and just hopefully see some great trade action here at the deadline. Last thing I want to see is a deadline where nothing really happens. We always see a lot of activity every single year in the lead up to the deadline. I want to see it be an active one this year. Should be a good one with a very competitive American League with nobody really considered the favorite going into the year. But all that is ahead next here on MLB Hot Stove Daily. And welcome in. Appreciate you guys taking the time to join us late on a Friday evening. Talked a little bit last night about where the power rankings stood as we're in the middle of June right now. Talked a little bit about some buyers and sellers. Wanted to go a little bit deeper dive into that discussion tonight. Also wanted to get into some trade ideas that have already been floated out there already. Rafi Devers being the big piece that's already moved on the offensive side of things. What's the next big domino that we could look to fall here? We're still a little bit early here for the trade deadline discussion, but as far as trades, I don't think we'll see any bigger move on the offensive side than Rafi Devers being moved to the San Francisco Giants, and that has already come and gone. Pitching seems to be rather plentiful on the market, but prices are said to be very high. So let's go ahead and dig right in. We'll start anyway by looking kind of where things stand as where we're at with the standings right now. We'll kind of give just a brief overview here. Tigers, Astros, Yankees, of course, lead their division. The wild card is pretty much set right now as far as the first couple of teams here, and then you get a bit of a logjam thereafter. Rays and Jays on top in the wild card. Mariners right now in the final wild card spot, followed closely by the Red Sox, Guardians, Royals, Twins, Rangers, Angels, Orioles, even with their tough start to the season, are 5.5 games back. It's pretty much a wide open contest right now in the American League side to see who ultimately gets into the postseason here. Now, looking at this playoff picture here, Say I'm the general manager of any one of these teams. I'm the Detroit Tigers. Do I think I have a chance to win the American League and have a chance at a World Series championship? Absolutely. If I'm the Astros, I currently lead my division. I'm 11 games over 500. I think I also have a chance. Yankees, no doubt, always think they do. Rays always going to do a little bit of buying and selling. They're never really seen as out of it, but 8 games above 500, they should consider themselves as a real threat in the postseason. Jays, 5 games above 500. They're not exactly playing great baseball right now, but they're treading water. Pitching is going to have to rebound for them, but I would consider myself, if I'm a GM there in Toronto, a team that should be trying to push for the postseason. Mariners, in a really great spot right now of Cal Raleigh really ascending as a player. Pitching staff has really been a little bit light for them from what we expected so far. I expect that to get a little bit better, but the offense for me, I'm not sure I've done enough. I wonder if I'm the GM there in Seattle, do I have enough offense here? And we'll see if they get that deal done. Jose Lucas, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. Had one of my greatest birthday gifts ever watching my Phillies beat down those Mets. Well, glad to hear you had a good birthday for you. Hello, Michael. Thank you for joining us. Good seeing you. Appreciate it. Kind of continuing down this discussion here. Red Sox absolutely think they're in wild card contention here, maybe even for the division crown, especially with the Yankees stumbling as of late, 3-7. Meanwhile, the Red Sox are 8-2. Even after the trade for Rafi Devers, the team still looks very, very good. Guardians are always seem to be right in around the wild card spot. I don't necessarily think that they view themselves as this is the year. Let's go ahead and buy and add here at the deadline. I do think they'll do a fair amount of retooling here. They could do a surprise move like what we saw with Josh Hader after years and years of trade speculation that it seemed like they were going to hold on to him, and then out of nowhere, they trade Josh Hader. This seems like that kind of year for the Guardians. Maybe this is the out-of-nowhere year where they tear down their bullpen. They have 2 really premium assets they could trade back there. Same thing on the offensive side with Jose Ramirez. He would then become the next biggest offensive piece to move after Rafi Devers was moved by the Red Sox. Royals kind of rescued the last 10 games or so of their season by sweeping the Texas Rangers and getting all the way back to within a game of 500. They're going to be without Cole Ragans, though, until after the All-Star break. The pitching has been decent for them, but the offense has absolutely disappeared. And even with a great 3-game series against the Rangers, they've only scored 253 runs so far. That needs to improve if the Royals want to win anything this year. Twins, I don't think they're going to do much winning, at least over the next couple of months. Multiple injuries in that starting staff, poor performance over the last few months anyway, or past month or so. Offensively, Byron Buxton's been great for them. He could be a nice trade domino at the deadline. I said Rafi Devers was the best offensive piece. Buxton could be one of the next big pieces that's available. I say big in air quotes because the availability of Buxton has always been the question. The talent on the field has never been in question. Can you get enough games out of him remains the case there. For the Texas Rangers, Bruce Bochy, Chris Young, 2 of the most competitive people you'll ever meet in baseball. They're going to try to compete and win this year. They're 2 games under 500 after getting swept at home by the Kansas City Royals. They won kind of a weird, wacky game out there in Pittsburgh tonight. But at what cost? They already have Eovaldi down on the injured list. Molly's down on the injured list. They're still trying to figure out when they're going to get back Gray and Bradford and Spores. And then today, Jake Berger goes down due to injury. Oh, by the way, Jock Peterson is also on the injured list. How much longer can they continue to, thread the needle here with this pitching staff that's pitching well above its weight right now? But as far as this team, they have an innings limit on Jacob deGrom to a certain extent. Same thing for Kumar Rocker. Just how many innings are they going to allow these guys to throw? Because right now, that pitching staff, that starting pitching staff, and the middle relief has really gotten the job done. Back into the bullpen, and the offense has really been scuttling there. And we'll see if the Rangers try to push the pedal to the metal, or if this is kind of a year where they take a step back and allow the young guys to come up and still try to compete, walk, chew gum at the same time, those types of things. I'll go ahead and throw in the last 2 teams here as the Angels and Orioles. Ron Washington stepping away from the Angels today due to health concerns. Wishing him nothing but the best, speedy recovery from whatever he might be dealing with. One of my favorite managers I've ever had the pleasure of watching. For the Angels, though, this is not their year. I think they're going to try to maximize the value of their veterans that they have and try to trade them at the deadline. I don't think this is a team that views itself as a postseason contender. Now, could they sneak in there and, in their playoff drought? Absolutely, but I just don't think this is the year you should be trying to end that right now. Absolutely, you want to try to win, but the long-term goals of the Angels have to take priority here if I'm the GM out there in LA. And for the Baltimore Orioles, they fire their manager. They're still 11 games under 500. The pitching, or 9 games under 500 now anyway, but their pitching has not been very good, and it doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon. So I'm not pushing my chips to the center if I'm Baltimore. So that's kind of your American League picture. On the NL side, Dodgers, obvious buyers. Phillies, buyers. Cubs, buyers. No question on all three of those. Mets, absolutely are buyers. Giants already proved that they're going to buy here at the deadline. Whether that be buy for the short term this year remains the question. But long-term deals, we just saw Rafi Devers being dealt to the San Francisco Giants. He's going to be there for a significant period of time on a significant salary. So Giants saw a little bit of an opportunity to cash in this year while the market was devoid of talent on the offensive side, and we'll see what happens in free agency for them moving forward. But for here at the deadline, I think they will try to restructure that pitching staff a little bit, bring in some more depth. Padres seem to be pretty much maxed out, but they could be a team that just tries to tinker around the deadline and just keep their core intact, make the best of what they got, or they could try to strip this thing down a little bit, try to maximize the value of a Cease, of a King, of a pretty much any of their pending UFA or pending free agents, and just see if they can get a nice penny back in return. Maybe diversify the talent that they're getting back, long-term deals, all of those kinds of things. All right, last couple of teams here that are kind of in that same wild card hunt. Brewers are one of the first teams out here, along with the St. Louis Cardinals. Reds, Diamondbacks have to be in this conversation. And for now, I'll leave the Atlanta Braves. They're playing well, 7-3 in their last 10. But this is not a team that I think is going to get all the way back on top of this horse and get to the wild card. Could they? Absolutely. They're only 6 games back, and I don't necessarily trust any of the teams between them and the Padres. I just think the Padres probably right now are more likely than not to hold on to that spot over the Atlanta Braves, even if they continue playing at their current pace. 3-7 in their last 10 for the Padres. I think that will course correct. Same thing here for the Atlanta Braves. But 289 runs allowed so far for the Braves. Pitching's doing it for them, but their offense has really abandoned them. So we'll kind of run through this side of things really quick here. Jose, how you think Red Sox fans will receive Devers when he returns to Boston as a visiting player? How do I think they will be seen? I think you'll hear a mixture there. I think you'll hear the cheers for what he's done for Boston and how he stuck it through the trade of Betts and letting Xander Bogaerts go. He decided to be a Red Sox there, and then they kind of took his position out from underneath him. I think there'll be a contingent of the fan base that understands the situation as far as where Devers was coming from. Is that the right position? I don't think so. You signed the long-term deal with the Boston Red Sox. Boston Red Sox, they set where that lineup is going to go. They tell you where you play. And your job is to show up and do your best every single day to honor the terms of your contract. And for Rafi Devers, for whatever reason, just kind of really was kind of a sourpuss ever since he was knocked off his spot at third base by a better, more complete defender out there in Alex Bregman. Now, remains to be seen if that will continue to be the case going forward with other pieces, that if Bregman comes back, etc. But now they've made the decision by jettisoning a contract they already had locked up and seeing if they can try to get a deal done with Bregman in the offseason. Seems a little bit trickier now. Even with the money being off the books here, is Bregman going to view this as, hey, is this the spot that's going to try to trade me in a couple of years if I'm having some issues or this team isn't as good or whatever the case may be? Or is this going to be my long-term home? But we shall see. Anthony, welcome in. Michael, have your top teams to trade for Sandy or from the Marlins changed, or are they still the same? Honestly, I'm calling and pulling back Sandy Alcantara off the market until he proves that he's a dominant starting pitcher once again, because I'm not willing to settle for pennies on the dollar. I want maximum value. I want 125% value. I don't just want to settle for whatever somebody found in their couch cushions for my best starting pitcher in Sandy Alcantara, who I think will be able to be back, or will get back to being that level of ace once again. It's always that first year after that surgery and so forth. You just need time to heal, build back arm strength, figure out how to throw again, all those kinds of things. The next year is really when you take off. The numbers start to look a lot better, those kinds of things. That's why we saw Jacob deGrom last year pitch a couple of games and kind of show that he's healthy, go into the offseason healthy, come up into spring training healthy, and then hit the ground running here. Sandy Alcantara kind of in a different boat here. I do think Alcantara is a great starting pitcher. They just need to rehab his value a little bit. So hopefully that answers your question there for Sandy. But can you blame them for not winning some of those games? The offense of the Marlins hasn't been consistent. What else can you expect when to do other guys and staff don't get run support? I mean, that offense we always knew was going to be devoid of talent. I mean, Stowers has been a nice surprise for you guys offensively, but the Marlins are never going to be considered an offensive juggernaut by any stretch of the imagination. The one time they actually had a decent offense was when they had Giancarlo Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna, etc., and they still weren't necessarily at the tops of the league. But looking at the NL side of things, Dodgers, obvious buyers here. Phillies, same boat, same thing for the Cubs. As far as the wild card is concerned, Mets absolutely are buyers here. But as far as where we could be looking here, the question comes down to these wild card teams. Which of these clubs could ultimately decide to sell? I think the Diamondbacks are right on that precipice right now because of the injuries, poor performance. Braves are in that same boat right now. But we'll get into some trades here next. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you are new here. Got about 13, 14 of you guys with us right now. If you wouldn't mind sharing that on your socials out there, go ahead and let your friends, etc., join us here and have some fun talking some baseball. Zach Wheeler says he's planning to retire once his contract expires at the end of the 27th season. We did talk about that earlier this week anyway. If you want to check out our video on that one, I believe that one was on Monday when we discussed that. But Zach Wheeler, for my money, has been one of the best starting pitchers over the last 6, 7, 8 years, somewhere in that conversation. Very, very durable pitcher there for Philadelphia, and they really don't have much in the cupboard outside of the great season they're getting from Luzardo. But all that taken into account, Wheeler is looking to win a World Series. This has been a World Series contending team for years now. They need to just get over the hump. If they don't, do I think he could retire after 27? Absolutely. Do I think he could easily go sign with a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers and go after a ring and try to title hunt that way? Sure, I do. But we'll see which direction it ultimately happens there for Zach Wheeler. Anthony, how about Eduardo Cabrera or Kyle Stowers? What do you think Miami could get for those two guys? We'll dig into those trade values here in just a moment. Stowers has a lot of control here. I think he'd get a pretty penny back for him. But do you really want to trade him if you're Miami? He's one of the few offensive pieces that is working for you. Now, Cabrera is a different story. I think he could easily be on the road out of town at the trade deadline as they try to free up some space for their trade or for whatever acquisition they're wanting to do. Let's see here. Anthony, I was watching Mark Feinstein on his YouTube channel, and he was saying that he believes if Sandy has a chance of scenery, performance improves. This is not a pitcher that you do a change of scenery trade for. This is hey, I'm going to maximize the value of this pitcher, get 125, 150% value here. I want $1.50 for every dollar. I want to maximize the return for Sandy Alcantara. I don't want to just be, hey, we got equal value back. We got back a couple of magic beans and try to sell that to my fan base. If I'm the Marlins, I'm holding out for top dollar after this season. Once he's shown that he's healthy through the 162 and kind of built up his arm strength once again and then can hit the ground running the next year, that's when you're going to see his value really start to go upward here. But for my money, I just don't see them using him as a change of scenery guy. If you're looking for a, quote, change of scenery guy, does not necessarily mean that you're a ready for the playoffs, type of performer right now. Could he get there? Absolutely. It's just a matter of time, though, for him to heal up and get that arm strength back, learn how to pitch again, handle big league hitters. That's a big adjustment after such a big injury. All right. You don't believe that Jonathan Heyman said recently, I think no matter how Sandy is performing at the beginning of the season, teams are willing to give up a pretty penny for him. I think they'll give up a pretty penny. I just don't think they'll give you 2 pretty pennies or 3 pretty pennies. I'm just saying that they give you a fair offer for a decent mid-level rotation starter, but that's not what Sandy Alcantara is. He is an ace when he's right. And until he's right, I don't think you're going to be able to field top dollar. He's got to demonstrate the ability to get to that level once again, and I do think that he will get there. All right, let's get into some trade talk here. Heading over to baseballtradevalues.com. Saw a couple of articles today about how the White Sox were willing to eat money on the Benintendi deal, on the Luis Robert deal. I think Robert is the more likely of the two, but the injury histories, contract disputes, Those kinds of things are all that you have to take into account here with Robert. Now, Benintendi, not been a great player there for the White Sox for a period of time, or for a significant period of time, ever since they decided to bring him in. Do I think the White Sox get a deal done for Benintendi? I don't. I think Luis Robert, if they eat the majority, if not all of that deal, he could be had for a decent return for trade, but you're not getting anybody's top 5, top 10 prospects in return. You're probably talking about a couple of top 20 guys and just trying to live with it at that point. All right. Nick Kroll back in the winter said other teams want MLB talent back in trades. Thought that was an interesting comment. We've seen a couple of baseball for baseball type of trades. We're not seeing baseball for futures type of trades too much so far this year. Looking at the Rafi Devers deal, absolutely got a couple of prospects back, but they got a couple of pieces that they're going to be able to utilize at the big league level this year in Kyle Harrison and Jordan Hicks. Now, the question is, how much talent did they get back overall? Remains to be seen. But we are seeing teams try to target more talent that's at the MLB level. Looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates, that was one of the offseason asks for them, was a proven player at the big league level that could handle and give a little bit of juice to that Pittsburgh offense there. But something to kind of keep an eye on as well. Let's go ahead and get into some of these trades here and then kind of come up with one or two of our own. Bednar's had a nice rebound for his rough start that he got off to this year. I do think the Tigers do need to add bullpen help, so this does make sense. I think it's a slight overpay. I don't think Bednar's value here is necessarily that high, but because I do think there is the variable of performance here for him a little bit more than some of the other more established closers. Adley Rutschman is not getting moved. We can skip that one real quick here. Moving on down, Soderstrom, he is not moving from the A's. I can guarantee you that one. DeGrom, I don't think he's moving at all for the Texas Rangers. Even if they decide to sell, they're trying to hold on to their pitching staff to try to make a run at it next year. They will not be moving on from DeGrom or Eovaldi. Now, as far as the Young brothers, reuniting them, I think that's a fair chance there because I don't think the Rangers right now view Josh Young as the answer at third base after his recent struggles and continued struggles anyway at the offensive side of things. I think Dan O'Dowd's phrase on MLB Network is aircraft carriers. He was once viewed as the future aircraft carrier, best player on a contending team. At the time when he was drafted and even when he was called up to the big leagues, the talent looked like it was there and showed at the big league level. But injuries, of course, happen. Poor performance happens, and he really looks like a jacked-up swing right now. He really doesn't have much confidence at the plate. Now, the Rangers have done a nice job rehabbing some of the guys who've had tough starts to the season. I just think it's too little too late for some of those guys. But as far as Josh Young, I just don't think the Rangers are necessarily set at third base through the end of this season, and especially going into next year as well. Let's kind of keep rolling down a few of these other trades ideas and just kind of see what makes sense here. Sandy Alcantara, just to kind of show you where his value is at, 16.2. That's nowhere near the level of player that he is. I mean, that talent is immense. After missing a significant portion of time here in his career and getting a rough start here, kind of shows you where the depressed value really comes in for Sandy Alcantara. So at that point, why am I trading him for pennies on the dollar? Jose, how long before someone breaks Juan Soto's contract? Great question. I don't think it's going to come this year. I think we're probably looking at least 5 years or so, maybe a hair less. But I do think it will be broken. I just don't think it's necessarily this year or next, but it should happen relatively soon. Paul Skeens, really big value here. Let's see what this trade looks like. You're getting Tyler Fitzgerald, Whisenhunt, Birdsong, Eldridge, and Jordan, and you're still not close. Let me go ahead and answer this one. Is this a fair deal? Absolutely not. Paul Skeens is not going anywhere unless you're getting a true, epic player back. I just don't think you're getting the return that you're looking for if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, this is a legitimate trade I think could happen. Brendan Lau for Anthony Hall, Rock Reggio, and Rafael Flores. Fairly decent value here. I think the Yankees could use a player like this. Positional flexibility, all those kinds of things are great. The Yankees really could utilize some of that type of player right now. But as far as the Rays, I don't think you're getting enough back here at the big league level. I think they're getting a nice package of pieces here, but I think they're going to try to push for a major league talented player that could come in and make a difference for them in the offseason. But Yankees would be a nice fit for Lau. I think the Rangers, if they had won a couple of more games here recently, I think we'd be talking about them in a different light as well. Jake Bird, a good relief option from the Colorado Rockies this year, having a truly fantastic year. You're giving up a couple of decent prospects here for the Rockies in exchange for Bird. I would do that in a heartbeat if I was the Rockies because you need to get younger here. And as good as relievers are, those guys are cannon fodder until you're a good team. That's why I don't understand why teams don't go out there and try to add a whole bunch of veterans relief pitchers, starting pitchers, and just hold on to them until they have injury issues or they need to call somebody up or whatever the case may be. That some of those struggling teams could have a veteran bullpen that they could go to easily and say, hey, look, Rangers, I know you're looking to compete this year instead of going with a rookie and trying to figure things out on the fly. Why don't we go ahead and try to give you some talent from the Colorado Rockies that could fill your hole temporarily. And then the Rockies get recouping some assets because of their free agent dollars and just kind of churn things over that way. That's something I could see a lot of these lower budget, smaller revenue teams try to, as an interesting way for them to try to build up some talent in their minor league systems there. Anthony, the only way Paul Skeens gets traded is if it's to the Rangers and they get Sebastian Walcott back, which is like you said, the Rangers would never trade him. Talk about Sebastian. I love Sebastian Walcott. I think he has superstar, and I mean superstar, capital S written all over him. I think he just needs some time in the minor leagues. He is so young. There's no need to rush him up at this point. Absolutely, if your team is a couple of games out of a wild card and a couple weeks left in the season, they could do what they did with Evan Carter. But it's way too early in the year to be discussing things like Sebastian Walcott being on the Major League roster. I see that from too many fans out there on the big league side of things. He does not need to be in the starting, or he does not need to be in the starting lineup right now, playing short instead of Kyle Seager, or instead of Corey Seager, excuse me. Or playing DH or wherever they want to horseshoe him in at the big league level. I just think he needs to focus on his craft at the minor league level and make the most of what he has to work with. But as far as your comp of the trade there, Skeens in exchange for Walcott plus pieces, I would not do that trade if I'm the Texas Rangers. They have some nice, good, young pitching prospects coming. They have some good pitching already on the ball club, and they have some flexibility here, as far as where they want to go with their rotation. Do they want to go young with their young talent that they got coming? Do they trade it to bring in some pieces for their title run if they try to go that way this year? But as far as Walcott goes, there's no way they're moving him. He is going to be a stud. As far as Skeens versus Walcott here, Skeens, of course, has already proven at the big league level. Walcott has not, but you're not going to get 3 Sebastian Walcotts in exchange for Paul Skeens. You might get 2 and some filler, but you're not getting 3 blue chip premium assets in return for Skeens. I think he's that talented. I think the Pirates should hold on to him because I don't necessarily think that they have to trade him right now. You're not going to get 8, 9, 10 prospects out of the top 10, top 15 prospects from another team. That's just not happening, even though that's where his value says he should be at. Nobody's going to meet that price. So where does that price ultimately come down to is the bigger question there. Jose, thoughts on the brawl between San Diego versus the Dodgers? I don't really have many thoughts on it. I think it was, the typical plunk, I plunk you, you plunk me situation. Ohtani did the right thing there, kind of waving everybody off, saying, hey, I'm good, stay in the bench, blah, 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 etc. But as far as, that's a very heated rivalry and has been for a better part of a decade plus, all the way back to the days of Matt Kemp and others. For the Padres, I think they've always been trying to punch above their weight. They do have a better team, at least from what they're working with as far as overall pieces. Dodgers just have so many injuries that once they get healthy, they'll obviously be the better team on paper. But I think there's always going to be contention between the two ball clubs. And I do think the Padres are a fairly good team this year. The question is, can they hold on by the end of the season? Jose, I think it's very dangerous and stupid to intentionally hit someone with their hands or elbow or in the head. Agree. I think if somebody does throw at another player and you can, pretty obviously tell that was the intention, there should be some significant penalties as a result. I like back in the olden days, they would always, in the National League, of course, the pitcher would hit. You could kind of time, or you could take out your aggression on that player by beating him with the ball or whatever. But not that I'm advocating for that. I am saying that there was a time and place for it. I just think baseball's kind of moved past that, I guess is the bigger point I'm trying to make. Master Vinman, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Just scrolling through a few trades. We did a little bit, kind of a recap of our buyer-seller segment that we did last night. Went a little bit more in depth with what teams might be ultimately looking to do as far as their positioning in the standings today. We'll continue down here on the trade list here and just see if anything else pops out to us. I mentioned Austin Riley as a possible trade candidate, a out-of-nowhere trade piece because of the dearth of talent offensively around the league available at the deadline. Let's see if this trade makes sense, though. You're getting Lombard, you're getting Hampton, and you're getting Flores in exchange for Austin Riley. That's a fairly decent offer. I would want a little bit better premium asset on the pitching side of things for the Braves. For instance, I think Lombard's a great asset, but if you can turn Hampton and Flores into, say, another great asset here at 10, 15 plus valuation, I think this trade probably gets done. As it stands, I think the Braves would rather hold on to Austin Riley in that deal. Garcia had a nice day the other day against the Texas Rangers, but let's see here. Getting Garcia in exchange for Hampton, Lombard, Flores, and Cunningham. I don't think that really moves the needle, honestly, for either ball club. I think too many pieces going one direction. I think that the Royals just wouldn't be necessarily blown away by that offer either. Thanks for the update. Absolutely. Anthony, this is an honest question. Do you think the Yankees fans are too harsh on Giancarlo Stanton, saying he's washed? Maybe he still has the after effects of mentally getting hit in the face. True, there's always going to be some of that, but for me, I mean, his injury was told to us at the beginning of the offseason that, hey, this is tendonitis, he's going to need surgery in both elbows, likely to keep him out the entirety of the season. We understood that going into the year. There was some optimism from Yankees personnel, though, during spring training that he'd be able to return sooner. Is he washed, is, I guess, the next part of your question. I don't think he's washed. I just think he's always been a very flawed player. And I think as you get older, some of those flaws become glaring weaknesses. And I just don't think he necessarily has the talent to be able to overcome them. Meanwhile, dealing with the injury issues that he's dealing with right now. That will have to be an injury issue that's solved in the postseason or after the season. They'll have to see how things work out there with the Yankees. I don't think the Yankees are giving Lombard up, so I think they'll have to switch Lombard with Arias. I would agree there. I think Lombard a little bit more valuable piece for them, but we shall see. All right, let's wrap it up here with just a couple more deals here. Mike Trout is not going anywhere. Reed Detmers would be a nice option here. Tigers aren't necessarily the team, though. Tigers, to me, need to add bullpen. They need to add they need to add some position players. If I'm the Tigers here, instead of calling them and asking about Mike Trout, because you're not going to get him, he doesn't fit your time or your valuation, etc. Detmers would be a nice piece, but I'd be looking at that bullpen. I'd be looking at Jansen. I'd be looking at I'm trying to remember the 6'5" guy, really tall guy, Ben something. Anyway, he would be the other one I'm looking for if I'm the Tigers. I'd also be looking at the outfield, looking at Taylor Ward. I'd be looking at other pieces that could be nice depth options on a winning ball club. As far as the return here, Kerry Carpenter. Again, I just wouldn't do the trade all the way around. Brian Hayes, we talked about that one earlier this offseason, about him possibly requesting a trade. Ultimately, it looks like the negative valuation, of course, on the Pittsburgh Pirates end of things. So they're going to have to eat the Stroman contract, ouch, and Sean Herman. The Pirates are not paying down the contract of Marcus Stroman. So let's just clear that one off the board right now. Mason Miller from the A's. That's a big price tag, but his price has come down 20 points since this time last year in exchange for Jace Young, Melton, and Rayner. Based off of where he's valued at right now, I think that trade is fairly decent value, but you might look for a better overall return as far as a valuation standpoint. Now, as far as Mason Miller, I think he's a great closer option for somebody to try to go after right now. I just don't think the A's are necessarily looking to deal him, and they'd really have to be blown away, and even then, I'm not sure they would pull the trigger on it. But for the A's, this is all about continuing to add and develop talent. They showed a resistance to doing so last year, but we'll have to see if they ultimately decide to move on from Mason Miller this year, while his value is still fairly high. Diamondbacks move on from Merrill Kelly, free agent at the end of the year. They get Sam Shaw and Kendry Rojas from the Blue Jays. Blue Jays, to me, do need some starting pitching. They're hoping to get Max Scherzer back at some point soon. That'll help in that regard. But ultimately, I do think that the Diamondbacks have a chance to sell here. The Blue Jays, though, are not going to be a team that's going to be acquiring starting pitching from a guy like Merrill Kelly. I think they're going to try to get the best out of what they can for Max Scherzer, and then I think they're going to go a little bit cheaper around the periphery here. Kelly just seems a little bit rich for what the Blue Jays might be willing to part with in trade. Now, once they get to the offseason, then I think the Blue Jays open up the coffers once again and try to fix some of their issues on their ball club as far as roster construction. All right, appreciate you guys joining us, doing a short one tonight. We'll be back live with you guys again. I'll do another one tomorrow, just a short live tomorrow, where we'll get into some actual trades. We'll mock up some trades together, so go ahead and send them to us in the chat. Make sure when we log off the video anyway, kind of reload your page and on the be one of the first viewers once it launches, of course, or once it posts by itself without the actual live premiere, and then post your trade right there, and I'll read them off and kind of go over them tomorrow's show. So we'll be live. Probably around 6:30, 7 o'clock if I had to guess, maybe a little bit later depending on how the day goes. But we will do a kind of a trade discussion live for you guys tomorrow. Let's see here. Anthony, honestly, I think Kyle Stowers would be a perfect fit for the Yankees. They need a DH since Stanton has been injured. I'm not going to argue with you there as far as the Yankees could use another bat. Is Stowers the perfect fit? I don't necessarily see him the same way. Jose, can you see the Phillies trade for Aroldis, like his velocity, his age, Chapman and Alvarado sounds like a nasty combo once he returns from suspension. But yes, remember, once he returns from suspension, he is not eligible to play in the postseason. So, while he might help you out during the regular season, the second you get to the October and playing playoff baseball, you're not allowed to play. And so if he's your eighth inning setup guy, you're going to have to find another eighth inning setup guy, on the fly in the postseason. I just think Aroldis Chapman is going to stay there in New York anyway, or in Boston. He is not going to move. Boston is trying to win this year, and we'll have to see how things work out there. But for Aroldis Chapman, I just don't think he's moving. Phillies do need some bullpen help as far as I'm concerned. They need another eighth inning-ish guy here to kind of help steady that bullpen after Alvarado's suspension. So we'll see where they ultimately turn. But I appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that heart in the chat. Hit the like, subscribe. Hit that bell on the channel as well. Follow us on X at Upside Ascend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. Again, join us around, sometime in the evening hours tomorrow. I don't want to pinpoint a time too much because you never know on Saturdays with my work schedule and whatever might be going on. But we will be doing a live. We'll be live before 10 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. So that'll probably be the latest I go live tomorrow. But appreciate you guys taking the time, hitting that like, subscribe. I noticed we gained a couple of subscribers in our show yesterday in our updated power rankings and buyers and sellers segments as well. But appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us this evening. Stay safe out there, everybody.